2013 and in 2016. It all comes together in an all-new Pokemon adventure. Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon.
I figured it out. I figured it out. Everything makes sense. I need...
Lockstin?
Toby, I figured it out!
Lockstin, what are you doing it so early?
Toby, there's no time to rest! I figured everything out!
Lockstin, I'm 8 hours ahead of you. It's the middle of the night. Wait, have you forgotten your meds again?
All of it.
Mate, what are you going on about?
Toby, I know everything there is to know about Pokemon. Pokemon Sun and Moon. It all comes together. Every Pokemon game, the anime, the movies, the card game, it all leads to this one moment. And now I have the ultimate Pokemon theory.
Go on then.
What's good? It's your boy, just a random guy living life. You know what it is, man. I don't even know what to say, bro. I just watched TyranitarTube's most recent video where he said he's accepting like submissions for like theories or whatever. He said, let him know it's that time. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, no, all this time, the last few weeks, I've been watching his videos, which I dropped a couple in this video we're gonna watch together. And I'm essentially just gonna drop like my theory to go along with like the very end question he asked that I came up with like this last couple weeks here. But let me know what y'all think. Y'all know the vibes, man. Make sure y'all check out the content for the videos all below in the comments. And then in the comments, well, yeah, comments in the description as well. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. But I mean, we're gonna get to it without further ado. I don't wanna hold it up too long. I mean, just to kind of preface my starting of what we're gonna talk about here, this is mostly about like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and the theory whether or not Terapagos is a dream Pokemon or we're dealing with like time and space like shenanigans again, where they're potentially from like the past and the actual present for the Paradox Pokemon as well. So it's kind of like a jumble of everything over like the last few weeks and months of what he's been talking about, but mostly kind of like him being that dream Pokemon. But yeah, let's get it.
What's up, y'all? It's T-Turn. Today we're gonna be talking about an interesting theory about Terapagos and the Indigo Disc, which is very well timed with now us knowing us the release date, and it's kind of a different take. I don't know how it took us till now to realize this, but it originates from this tweet here, which shows Terapagos side by side with a certain item, and I'm gonna explain it. So the Terapagos on the left is something we were looking through in a video. One of the companies that has licensing from Pokemon to make figures recently put up these Terapagos figures on their site, and we were looking through them in a previous video on all the different angles. We saw the underbelly of Terapagos, looks exactly what you'd expect from a turtle, and we got a better look at the sides of Terapagos, which actually show hexagons for once. And why I'm mentioning the company's relevant is because it's official, so they got the details right from Pokemon, so it'd be pretty accurate. So one of the images show it from a bird's eye view where you can see Terapagos from the top, perfectly showing all its typings. I've counted them, all 18 are there, and I guess this can kind of represent the 19th type. So of course, when people were entranced looking at this photo, this person on Reddit noticed something. That if you look at Terapagos very carefully, it starts to look reminiscent of an item called the Dreamcatcher, which is the item on the right. And I'll explain what the Dreamcatcher is and where it originates. And it's kind of interesting, but first, let's compare the two, because this might be kind of an answer to what Terapagos is. This is one of the biggest mysteries. What are Terapagos? What are the Paradox Pokemon? So first off, you got all the typings here, which fit to the mesh here. I would say it gives a proper reasoning to why Terapagos has pentagons and irregular ones instead of hexagons, because look, this is an irregular pentagon too. But you know, if you look at different dream catchers, some of them are circular, so that part isn't too relevant. But when you look carefully, it lines up more and more.
Literally,
so you got all the typings that match up here. Then you have the Terra in the middle, which lines up with this. You got the top of Terapagos here, and then the flowing tail, which works as the feathers on this. When you look at it a bit zoomed out, it does look a lot like the Dreamcatcher. So the question arises, is Terapagos somehow based off this dream catcher, which I did some research into what it is, so I'll explain what I found out. So it's an item originating from the Ojibwe people, who are an indigenous group, and it's handmade, and they weave this mesh together and decorate it with the feathers and all. And then you see what they do is they hang it up somewhere, and this is the part that's interesting. What it does is it protects a sleeping person from bad or negative dreams. It's called the dream catcher because it's supposed to capture all the dreams passing by and then filter only the good ones down to the feathers for us to enjoy while we're sleeping. And so why this is interesting, of course, is because this is one of the two major theories for what the answer to the mystery of this game is, that the Paradox Pokemon and Terrapagus are involved in time travel, or that Terrapagus is an imagination Pokemon that is bringing fake Pokemon to life. That Heath 200 years ago is a compulsive liar. He made up his whole journey, came to the surface, published a book, and everyone rightfully called him a liar. And then 200 years later, Sodom Tour are inspired by the fantasies in the book, and they go to Area Zero, discover nothing is there, but then they meet Terrapagus in some way, and Terrapagus brings their dreams to life. And actually, as I'm about to make this video right now, Ku just posted a tweet, which is perfectly relevant to this. Wow, he says, let's battle time travel or imagination. Or they don't intend to tell you the results even after the plot ends. Oh, Ku, you can't do this. That's perfect timing, Ku. So Ku's aware of the discussion we've been having. He's saying, is the game gonna make it time travel or imagination, or keep it abstract and not actually tell us what the identity is, but essentially leave little hints for the community to have a conclusion? I still don't know which one I believe in, but I think the best way to settle the debate between the two is to take one side and try to defend it. So I'm gonna pretend imagination is confirm the truth, and I'm gonna defend it with my life.
What? Well, that is, I mean, of course, due to the sequelization and milking of basically every intellectual property, there were bound to be more Pokemon.
Here we got the Dreamcatcher, and Terrapagus looks a lot like it. So now that I've explained it, let's have some fun with this idea, right? Because it does look a lot like a dream catcher. Now, if I show you some pictures of a dream catcher on Google, they're sometimes shown differently. Like this one has multiple nets, but they generally have the same look. Flowing feathers at the bottom and this entrancing pattern with something in the center. Generally, regardless of what photo you click on, it has that same shape. I mean, look at this one. The big thing to mention here about it uncannily looking like the Dreamcatcher is I want to bring your focus to Terrapagus's tail. Turtles do not have a tail like this. So I made a video on this explaining it, but pretty much the only turtle, which is only a mythology that has that flowing tail, is in a Japanese myth called Urano Shimako involving a time-traveling turtle. It has that exact flowing tail.
This is why it's
so it almost seems that Terrapagus has to be based off that time-traveling turtle, especially when we have time travel in the game. But then it also looks a lot like the Dreamcatcher here. It's supposed to be either time-traveling turtle or a dream Pokemon. How could it resemble both of these at the same time? I mean, of course, it could be a coincidence that it looks like a dream catcher. It's bound to look like something accidentally. But imagine if Terrapagus turned out to be both theories at the same time. Both a turtle with time powers and dream powers. Nobody would have expected that.
Exactly. Nobody would have expected that. So it's exactly why they did it, bro. And I don't know, like me personally, like going later into this video, we'll get into more points, but like the idea of like Terrapagos and his dream energy is really important to the story in like Scarlet and Violet, which is crazy, but it also does tie into like the folklore of that tale. Like a lot of the other games in the past have, like if you think about X and Y, it was heavily influenced by, I think it was like, Norse mythology, I believe. So it's like heavily tied into a lot of the game. And then like Sun and Moon, it was heavy like alchemy. That's why I use like that clip, because he explains it in that video. So definitely check that out for Lockstin. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think about, but like Game Freak really be big brained in it. And it's like, yeah. So Terrapagos is both. He's like imagination and time traveling, but like not really the time traveling. He's using his like dream energy to make like the person's dream come true essentially, or like their wish come true. But I feel like it's more dream because of some stuff I'll mention later in the video. But yeah, that's what we got so far. I don't want to give too much away because I'm going to let my man T-Tar cook up. So go ahead. I'm going to pass the mic.
So we start off with what Heath wrote 200 years ago. The biggest proof we have of his tales being real is he has photographic evidence of a Dawn fan he saw. But Heath lied when he made this photo because we went to Area Zero ourselves and there is no tropical location like this.
Which is true.
So what Heath really did is to defend his book and create some sort of proof so when people read the book, they're like, damn, I guess this crap is down there. Him and his team staged a fake Dawn fan sighting in this tropical location. When you see the photo earlier in the game, you think there's some hot-ass tropical weather down there. There's nothing like that. It's kind of plain. And while we're speaking about lies, there's another lie I can show you in his book where he decided to write about the cool species he saw down there. Flamingos, palmots, knucklestacks. Because everything down there was stuff you could see on the surface anyway, he made up a random gorilla Pokemon that the game left in there for us to see. Because it doesn't actually exist. He just wanted to make it look interesting, and that's especially why they only showed it from the back. So they staged the Dawn fan photo, made up more Pokemon that don't actually exist in Area Zero, and even you can see inspirations for the Paradox Pokemon in some of their survey members. One of them has a Ralts family member. But about Keratin and Miraidon, Heath never saw Keratin and Miraidon in Area Zero. He liked Cyclizar so much that he decided to write about there being a king of all the species down there as a futuristic or past version of Cyclizar. And we would do the same thing if we wanted to lie in his shoes too. If we treasured Cyclizar that much as our partner Pokemon, we would make it the cover of our books and build a fantasy around it and write that it was the strongest of the creatures that existed down there. So that's the theme of this video. Heath lied in Area Zero. He named all these Paradox Pokemon having seen them, but he never really did see them. Then a culture caught wind of his book and decided to make up stories about seeing them too on the surface, like Screamtails in Paldean forests. It leads to a bunch of people telling a culture their stories and them writing a bunch of articles like in Violet about an alien future where Iron Moth is spying. It's not just a lie of a sighting based off a real Pokemon, the Pokemon too is a lie. Walking Wake and all would appear to be named by him too, but perhaps he didn't in this case. It's possible he never actually saw the Pokemon related to these two drawings and instead created this drawing just to spark up the mystery further about what could be down there. So perhaps in the same theme of the other fake Pokemon, when Sada and Turo saw these images and went down to Terrapagus, it made their dreams based off that drawing real and created the three fake legendary beasts as part dragon types, or futuristic swords as psychic types. And so when it comes to these 6 names, Sada and Tura are the ones that actually first saw them and named them. Which is why to this day, Game Freak is not showing us a single Pokedex entry for any of the Paradox legendaries. They're waiting to show us that in the final DLC because there's probably proof Heath never saw anything close to them down there. The legendary beasts being dragon and the swords being psychic are the 2 cores of a savage past and this digital future. It sounds like it came from someone's dreams. The paradox told to us by Arvin is that the Paradox Pokemon exist in the wrong time period, 200 years ago, but Sada and Turo are the ones that just summoned them. It's a real paradox that the game wants us to think about. The answer is that Heath never saw them 200 years ago in the first place. The Herba Mystica, they're shown to us to be this dreamlike panacea that can cure anything. It cured the Mabostiff. They're just dream-filled plants from Terrapagus' influence that cause this cure-all effect. Further proof that Terrapagus is a dream Pokemon.
Yes. And this is true. And especially like trying to piggyback real fast, like thinking about Heath, like it's not to say he lied, guaranteed. We haven't seen the full truth. Like the trailer shows that we obviously have to go back to Area Zero. So there still is a chance there's some hidden level below, or there's some like portal or something that he fell into or fell through that ended up taking him to that place where all the actual Pokemon are coming from. And I would think that would be exactly where the time machine is built. So I would say like it definitely makes sense that Heath seen all this, kind of told the story, but it's just sad that he was ridiculed even though he was telling the truth for visiting the Dragon King's palace that he likely did visit. And this is most likely how his Miraidon or Koraidon comes about from the Cyclizar as well. But everyone was like, nah. Until it turns out years later, it's true. And Sada and Turo almost bring it as a disaster upon the people, but we end up stopping because these Paradox Mons that were from the castle or whatever the palace is ended up coming through because of Terapagos granting their wish for the time machine. Yeah, like, it's not to say that he lied, but we don't know if he lied for sure. But it is definitely apparent that Terapagos had something to do with everything there, and that his energy made all of these things true to some degree, whether or not that's through the dreams or through time.
I suppose going back to these 6 Paradox Legendaries being like actualized versions of what Sada and Turo thought would exist based off the photo they saw in Heat's book, you can kind of maybe see a discrepancy if you look at like Suicune's entry. Suicune's been described as this Pokemon so serene as the wind and purifying water as it touches it. The reincarnation of the North Winds itself, a half wind, half water Pokemon that's so elegant it even walks on the water just for extra bonus points. Now, Walking Wake did carry this on. It can walk on water too. But while it can be looked at as a savage period in Suicune's ancient life before it became what it is now, or got resurrected by Ho-Oh into a more calm version, it can almost be spun as Sada reimagining what Suicune should have been before as entirely wrong. I mean, a T-Rex monster that can already walk on water turning into this? If Walking Wake really is from Sada's dreams, it sounds like her fantasy went too far and she got it wrong.
Yes, and that is the biggest part of the theory that confirms that Terapagos is the dream Pokemon, or at least both again for me, in the fact that, again, after all this that it created or Heath allegedly seen and reported, this at least, again, it inspires Sada and Turo, or again confirms with their research later on that Terapagos has this power to create these Pokemon, or this area exists like beyond Area 0, and this treasure is that. So like, if it is in fact him creating the dream, Sada or Turo's like beliefs of what Heath wrote in the book essentially tainted their desire or wish for what they wanted to see, essentially, and the fact that they didn't really understand what was going on or like what Heath was really seeing in person, but they're kind of getting like secondhand knowledge, so they're kind of like trying to imagine based off of that, and it's kind of different, which I believe creates Dokutaro, which in my theory is Sada and Turo's imagination or wish created by Terapagos of Terapagos, which would be crazy. And it would be like, that's one thing why it would be like the mythical, because it's like kind of a side product like Mewtwo and Mew, kind of like a clone, but like this time created by Terapagos because of Sada and Turo.
And then there's something else to mention, right? Remember the explanation I gave? There's such things as bad dreams and good dreams,
and this
right?
is why.
That the dream catcher catches.
This confirms.
Well, in the story of Scarlet and Violet, we kind of have a dream granting phenomenon play out that doesn't involve Terapagos. It involves Dokutaro, or some kind of poisonous power. The loyal 3 Pokemon are Pathetic, Monkey, Dog, and Bird Pokemon, and something poisonous grants them the poisonous chains and turns them into these evil, greedy Pokemon. I mean, it's written in the game that they had some kind of dream granted to them. Okidoki ends up buffing up and getting muscle, Monkey Dory gets granted insane psychic powers, and Pheasantipity grows beautiful. All we know is that the toxic chains seems to be what granted them their powers, and since we know there seems to be a 4th loyal legendary, we kind of assume it comes from Dokutaro. So if this whole dream catching net turns out to be legit for Terapagos, it's almost like you could create this scenario where Terapagos is a dream Pokemon and Dokutaro actually has a connection to Terapagos.
Yes.
It's almost a Pokemon that has the negative parts of those dreams that are captured. Not that Dokutaro is a part of Terapagos, because that's too contrived to say, but maybe something like Dokutaro hunts and takes out the evil dream power from Tropagus. Like, that's really weird, right? The game itself has this weird dream concept shown to us. I'm just throwing out fun ideas, right? And then the other one is we have the heat drawing where Tropagus clearly is shown going crazy. If we were to say Tropagus is a dream Pokemon and kind of based off this whole dream catcher thing, which could work out as maybe it's like catching the dreams of all Paldean people, you know, just a tiny portion, and that feeds Tropagus power. And then if someone goes and meets Tropagus, it can grant a huge amount of that dream power to you to grant your dreams. So even taking Dokutar out of the picture, if we were to think of how this innocent turtle could turn into such a ruthless creature like shown in Heat's drawings, it's almost like someone triggered all the negative dreams that it captured to come, you know, erupting out. And that's why it looks like this chaotic Pokemon summoning tsunamis. You know, I both love and hate it. I don't want Tropagus to be a dream Pokemon, but there's definitely something interesting here. At the end of the day, while Scarlet and Violet does have this time theme to it, so far there's no direct correlation to Tropagus and time travel. The real implication seems to be just that Tropagus's crystals are so potent with energy that they use it for inventions. So Sarantura use it to make an AI and a time machine, and maybe the ancient people who left the stuff in Area Zero use it for stuff as well. But it's like the time traveling stuff is a byproduct of using Tropagus's energy. So far as of now, there's nowhere in the game that actually suggests Tropagus itself has time powers. But of course, all of this is just me focusing on the idea that it looks like the dream catcher. Because at the end of the other day, it still looks like the time traveling turtle.
Yeah, and it's, you know, and that's the biggest flag, that it literally doesn't use anything that indicates time. It's literally 80% more towards dream or imagination rather than the time. The only thing that's locked to time is the fact that the Paradox Mons are like past and present, or past and future. I keep saying present, past and future. But besides that, I mean, you know, this continues to just show like, yes, like Dokutaro definitely is like some byproduct of Sada and Turo's like interaction with I would say Terapagos, or even to go as far as like, I thought even just like recording this video, like it could be even of Serrano's, and that's why we don't know where it is, because it's with Serrano, and Serrano kind of realized that, hey, this Pokemon is essentially like Dokutaro, because he didn't go down as deep with them, but he was there in the expedition. So who's to say that maybe he didn't try to follow them at some point and then realized that this mom was there. And then later on, we know that it helps the Loyal 3, like T-Tar was saying. So that just further proves that point as well. So, I mean, it's, you know, at this point, it's kind of like you can't do nothing but say, like, it is. We're just kind of waiting for it to be, like, proven at this point by Game Freak, or, you know, told to us. So that's essentially what we're waiting for. But, like, at the same time, I think it's important to think about, like, Gen 5 remakes and the Dream World and how it connects to this.
And so now to think about, if all of this is a lie, what did Heat see when he went down to Area Zero? Or what did he do down there? Chances are, if Sarantura were able to actualize fake Pokemon, surely Heat, who has a bigger fantasy and imagination than them, would have pulled something off too. It's hard to tell. Maybe Heat did manage to create just one Paradox Pokemon based off his biggest fantasy of them all. Either when he went down there with this crew, or hypothetically after his book was published and he was called a liar, if he went down there alone at the end. And that Paradox Pokemon is his own Cyclizar turned into Koraidon or Miraidon, which would later be the kind one Sada and Turo pulled out and we ride on in the games. It would be like a clash between Heat's imagination and Sada and Turo's more savage imagination. Yes. Heat was building this fantasy, so his Cyclizar turned into a kind one. And then the ones Sada and Turo pulled out were more brutal because they were more crazy scientists. So the original Koraidon Miraidon is based off Heat's broad imagination, and the second one is just living up to the fantasy of what Heat wrote. The kings of the past and future. So when you see the two Koraidons and Miraidons clashing with each other, it's kind of like the imaginations of Heath back then, who was more innocent with what he was doing, clashing with Sada and Turo, which we have proof in game they're crazy, and we're on the path to destroying the world.
And this is literally why she creates
It's your
Dope
brother.
Taro. Like, just think
But
about
this
that.
one's
It
fierce,
probably
right? This
is
one
why
fights.
she's dead. Besides the fact that the Koraidons were fighting, or the Miraidons.
Which would also give a different meaning to when we go back to the books and you see Heath standing beside his
yes.
Psych Lizard. But back
And
to
this is
Heath,
why
if
he's
we were to
telling the
call
truth.
everything he did and wrote about a lie, he did find some truth down there
Exactly.
too. One, he found all those ancient tablets, which we would assume are the ancient people who learned about dream tech through Tropagus's
Big
energy and were
flag.
trying to build
Remember
stuff back
this.
then. And then they just left these slabs for future people to figure out. So he wrote about those, and those turned out to be real. And he also wrote about Trophagus
Exactly.
and meeting it, and that definitely turned out to be real. Sada and Turo also discovered Trophagus in recent times, and even, in a weird way, used its energy to create dream-like inventions, like a time machine,
Terra
which is totally from
crystal
someone's
balls.
fantasy, and then AIs, which not only is the
Mass-produced.
stuff of fantasies, but specifically Sada and Turo's fantasies. They never trusted any of their own members back in the Area Zero labs. They wanted pretty much their own clone to be their sidekick. So of course, they used Tropagus's dream energy in a scientific way to create exactly that, a perfect AI with its human parts stripped away so that it wouldn't be compassionate and lose its productivity worrying about Arvin and all. And so why the AIs can't leave Area Zero is
The Paradox
because
Mons.
they're not finished products. They're constantly fueled by specifically dream energy. So they have to stay in Area Zero's core. And so all the stuff about dream tech and Heat's survey down there mostly being a lie, his crew knew that.
But the thing still remains, like, his crew knew most of it was a lie, but not all of it, because there's still the piece where he was separated from them for some degree. And I believe that first initial time where he meets Terapagos, he meets it beyond Area Zero in some place that we'll find in either the end of the DLC of the second one or some free DLC they give out on Pokemon Day, like they did with the Sunbreak DLC for Legends. But I just can't be convinced that he is completely just making it all up, unless it's the fact that he is making it all up with good intentions of making some grand adventure seem like the way to go, and then Terapagos makes that the reality. And then, like Titar said, that is how his Cyclizar becomes what he wanted to be, the leader of that reality and his best friend of that. And then he, has to let it go, obviously, in that area, either, again, in that first instance or sometime when he came back, after being ridiculed and, like, trying to find it again and, like, prove that it's real. So I believe that is true. And then going into where Sada and Turo kind of try to copy this, but you can never copy something perfectly. And obviously that, coupled with them being crazy, made it so that it was all bad. And that led to Doktaro and the events we have now.
So the time machine is a fake machine that just wields dense amounts of Terapagus's
Yes.
power to make Pokemon out of thin
Yes.
air, which is OP. So you could
Crazy
say
OP.
maybe it uses like a Jigglypuff as a base, and then it converts it into a Dream Awakened version of Jigglypuff, Screamtail.
Titar, slow down.
But
You're
going
clicking
back
too
to
fast.
like
You're gonna
the
burn
Dreamcatcher idea I was telling you guys about, where when people discovered Tropigus looks like a Dreamcatcher, I was saying maybe it's at the center of Paldea, getting a tiny, like, inconsequential bit of dream energy from everyone in the entire region, that it's amassed this huge amount. And so while it is making Pokemon out of thin air, if Sada and Turo, in a sense, asked it to or forced it
I
to
don't even
using the
think he
time
thought
machine,
about what he even said
it
there.
is finite to an extent because it's taking it from that supply of dream energy. So it's not as OP. So essentially, Tropigus is a giant spirit bomb
Yes, call
Pokemon,
him
and Sada and
Goku.
Turo just knew how to mine that and get what they wanted out of it. Essentially, Tropigus is like Shenron. It can actually grant people's dreams using the dreams of everyone else
Without
in the
the
region,
balls.
which I guess is poetic. And then there's, of course, like Dreamcatchers, There's positive
Hey,
dreams
yo.
and negative dreams. If the big spirit bomb that Sada and Tura are getting all their inventions from are from the positive dreams, then that means the negative dreams lurk somewhere too. And maybe the vision he got when he went down to Area Zero of this terrifying Tropigus
premonition.
is Tropigus if you pissed it off and it brought out the negative dream energy and was in this world-ending state.
Or he made it mad.
Because
turned into
not that
this form
Tropigus is a bad
in front of him.
Pokemon, but it's like a double-edged sword. If you have this amassed energy collected from people's dreams, then the negative version that Tropigus turns into would be a reflection of how evil people can be too. And selfish. So this is what Paradox Pokemon are. Fake Pokemon made from the dream energy that Tropigus has amassed. And so you can get to smaller examples like Ogerpon. Ogerpon's masks are like actualizations of its own dreams. That's why only Ogerpon can wield those masks and turn into those different typings. And then you can get to examples like Dokutaro, which we don't know if it's optional or not. But maybe Dokutaro is a Pokemon that knows this about Tropigus and hunts down its dream energy to grant its own smaller evil dreams, which is how it grants the Loyal 3 its toxic chains.
Yes, bro. He's cooking so much, bro. And he doesn't even realize what he said, because that piece he said is so important, because literally there's been so many rumors that we're going to get to a place where in this second DLC, we can literally have some type of PK Hex feature to where we're basically essentially creating Mons, or either that or like changing Pokeballs are like the two leading ones from Ku, but that literally proves that even more. If Terapagos made that room for Sada and Turo to literally mass produce those Paradox Mons just because they wanted to study it or whatever the case is, because again, they're literally a evil mad scientist, which is good that Arvin wasn't with them, because who knows what would have happened to him. But at the same time, it's crazy that they literally just left him alone. But evil genius, they don't care. So like them having that there is further proof, because we'll be able to use that probably later on, or again, we'll probably like get to the place where that essentially exists in that, like probably like we'll have so much time we can go in there and do those things or something like that. But that's something else of another theory. The main part is that Terapagos made these things happen from dream energy, and like the spirit bomb idea is really cool to think about, because it's been in the Pokemon universe already with Darkrai and Cresselia, like with their respective islands. So it really all comes together.
And so at this point, you know, I've thought about this a lot. When you hear a lot of points in succession like this, it's
Like,
freaking
bro,
convincing. Like I've just convinced myself just speaking out my mind. But there's one last thing I want to leave you all off on. That's for you guys to answer, which is the final question.
Here's where I'm ready.
Where did Sada and Toro go?
And that's the biggest question of this.
So the time machine is fake. Or maybe the time machine is real.
If it's real.
How far does the dream stuff go? But they use it at the end of the game. And they go somewhere. Did they get crushed by the machine? Of course not. This is a Pokemon game.
Did it send them to
Did they get sent somewhere else? Did they get sent to a void?
Or a void? Yes.
Or did they actually get sent to the past and future?
The reality they wanted,
even though that's not even a
because
time
it's their
machine.
dream.
How far does Tropigus' dream powers go?
And since it's AI,
all I know is somehow in this Indigo Disc,
for the dream?
as Ku said here, even if they don't tell us the answer, they'll hint it enough so that we know the answer. Yes, and then of course there's Gita, which I made a video talking about. I'll link it right after this is done. But Gita looks a lot like Glimora, too much like Glimora with the blue and yellow. So we talked about this. It sounds crazy right now to say, but this theory that she's a Glimora. I mean, after you heard everything I just told you about Tropigus being a dream Pokemon, does it sound far-fetched if there was a Glimora that somehow got its own dreams actualized and turned into a humanoid form, whether that form is temporary or not? And that's Gita.
Not at all, T-Tar. And that's why I say, make sure y'all like up all his videos, bro. Make sure y'all subscribe so y'all can see his videos going forward, bro. He's really the best theorist out here in terms of all of these theories. But it's not far-fetched at all. And I think in terms of what's coming in future gens, it's even more so important to the story of what's happening. Because I think, yes, Gita was a Glimora, perhaps, And that's why she's so bad at battling. Like he says, she literally throws out her ace like at the beginning and then treats her support mon that should have been at the beginning as her ace. And then like later on, when you battle her again, she's learned more and she switches it around then. But it's like that first time you're supposed to be the strongest. Like how are you not the strongest? You know what I mean? And it could be maybe she got like taken away or something, or who knows. But the biggest piece is that it just ties in again. And when you hear so many things in a row, like the argument becomes like, you know, it's a solid argument, but is it the truth is the thing. And going forward, I think it could be the truth with that idea of the Glamora as well, leading into more ideas of Pokemon and fusion between human and Pokemon, and kind of getting into the story of like I think it's Digimon Frontier way back in the day, because no one's really done it since then. I think the only show that tried it was like some third-party shows like Chaotic, and you know, Kolioko, stuff like that, where you're like essentially like it's weird to say like fusing with the monster and using the monster's power, but like the monster is essentially just becomes like armor. It's weird, but it's still there. So it's like in the Digimon show, like essentially they use the Digimon to like digivolve, and then so they're the digivolution, but the Digimon still is its own thing, like in its base form. So it could be a similar thing going forward where like, who knows what they do with that, or even if it's just between Pokemon and the Pokemon fusion, or even the legendary specifically, because again, next year we're going to get some type of either Gen 5 remake, Gen 5 Legends game, or Gen 5 remade. It's like itself, like somehow like a third game. So, I mean, I think personally they may go with another like give Ilka, do black and white remakes, honest remakes, or faithful remakes, whatever they said. And then they'll do another Legends game. And then maybe in that Legends game, it'll be like a future game where there's like fusion involved, just to spin off for those fans who like the hardcore fans, or like people who like that kind of content. Like, because it, you know, there's so much media, so much merchandise, so much content, all kinds of stuff that could be made, plus DLC for the future off that, and all kinds of stuff. So I mean, I think it personally would be smart. And then going into Gen 10, that could be the gimmick as well. Or who even knows? Or like maybe you'll get a teaser for the legendary alone, and then it'll be a gimmick for like a bunch of main mons in the future. Plus, if you think about it, back in Gen 5, there was a lot of stuff going on with the Dream World, which I think could include characters and people in the game now if they made it a thing. Who knows? Like, personally, this just chalks off in my mind, hey, Terapagos is a Dreammon. Doku Taro is Sada and Turo's vision or imagination of Terapagos, made by Terapagos. So that way it's kind of like a cop-out. It's not part of Terapagos, but it literally was made by Terapagos as either again fulfilling their dream, or like, who knows? Because it also makes them the AI.
What?
The AI. It makes him the AI.
Bro, what are you talking
so, you know, there's that as well. So, I mean, it's just too many things in a row that are saying all these things that, I mean, line up. We're just waiting till the 14th at this point. And when the 14th comes around and me and T2 are right, I need y'all to like these videos. Make sure y'all comment and subscribe. And join the streams, man. I'm going to be live soon. Y'all see the polls. Vote the polls. I'm not trying to run for presidency, but I need to know what y'all want to see, man. So vote. Definitely let me know if y'all want to see more videos like this. I got some more coming your way, and we got some actual reaction to shows and movies coming soon too. So check your boy, and we out.